At the edge of the village, where the old fields ended and the jungle began, there stood a dried-up well. People called it Andhkoop. The water had dried up 100 years ago, but the darkness inside it was still alive. The well was so deep that if someone threw a stone into it, it took several moments for the sound to return. Its walls were old, broken, and covered in black stains, as if someone had burned them. The villagers stayed far away from that well. Parents scared their children by saying, "Don't go near Andhkoop, or the darkness will carry you away at night." The elders said it was not just a well, but a wound in the earth from where ancient evil still emerged. Many people claimed that on moonless nights, a red glow appeared at the mouth of the well, as if an eye had opened to watch the world. Matthan was the kind of young man who always looked for shortcuts. He was 28 years old. After his father's death, all the responsibilities of the house had fallen on him. His younger sister's marriage, his mother's treatment, and his own future, everything had come to a halt because of lack of money. Every morning, Matthan went to the city for labor work, but while returning at night, a fire burned inside his heart. Why should I keep working hard, he thought, when there are people in this world who become rich overnight? One day, he spoke to the village's old priest, Baba Sham Sundar. Baba said to him, "Son, some things give quickly, but later they take everything away." Matthan laughed and asked, "Baba, have you ever heard of such a ritual?" For just a moment, Baba's face turned pale. Then he slowly said, "The Andhkoop ritual, 5 nights long, but do not ask about it. Whoever tries it never completes it." The name settled deep in Matthan's heart. Secretly, he asked the old villagers about it. Finally, an old fakir who sometimes visited the village told him the full secret. 5 moonless nights. On each moonless night, you must spend 1 night inside the well. The first night, you only stay awake. The second, you must give blood. The third, you write your name. The fourth, you speak your desire. And on the 5th, you give a part of your life. If the ritual is completed, every wish of yours will come true. But if you stop halfway, the darkness will never leave you. Matthan thought, it's only 5 nights. I can do it. The greed for money, power, and luxury filled his heart with darkness. The first moonless night arrived. At 11 o'clock, Matthan quietly slipped out of his house. In his hand was an old torch, and on his shoulder a bag containing a water bottle, bread, and some red vermilion powder. By the time he reached the edge of the village, sweat covered his hands. When he reached the well, he turned on the torch. The darkness was so thick that even the light disappeared after a few feet. Near the edge of the well was an old stone platform. Matthan sat there and took out a red thread from his bag, tying it around his right wrist. The fakir had said that on the first night, he only had to stay awake. No prayers, no blood. Just remain awake all night and keep staring at the well. If sleep overtook him, the ritual would break and the darkness would become angry. The night moved slowly. A strange smell filled the air, like old soil mixed with rotting things. To keep himself awake, Matthan began singing songs and making up stories in his mind. Again and again, his eyes drooped. Around midnight, he felt as if a sound was coming from inside the well. Very faint, very deep, like a woman laughing. He jerked upright. Pointing the torch toward the mouth of the well, he saw movement in the light. A black shadow, deep below, slowly rising upward. Matthan's heart pounded wildly. He wanted to step back, but his feet felt stuck to the ground. The shadow came closer, closer, then suddenly stopped. Taking a long breath, Matthan realized it was now forming into a shape. The shape of a woman. Long hair, white clothes, but her face hidden in darkness. In a soft voice, she said, "You have come, after a very long time. Someone has come." Matthan could not speak. He could only stare. The woman smiled and said, "It is the first night, stay awake. If you fall asleep, I will drag you down." Matthan quickly nodded. All night, he stayed awake. He did not dare blink. Near dawn, when the sky turned faintly red, the shadow descended back into the darkness. His body was soaked in sweat. With trembling hands, he picked up his bag and ran home. As soon as he reached home, he collapsed onto his bed. His mother asked, "Where were you, son?" He lied. at a friend's house. But that night, he dreamed that he was inside the well, while thousands of eyes stared at him. Over the next few days, strange things began to happen. The contractor who employed him suddenly offered him a large project and 3,000 rupees in advance. Then, the next week, a man from the city arrived saying that a company wanted to build a plant on Matthan's land and was offering a huge amount of money. Matthan was shocked. He thought, perhaps the ritual has begun. But at night, whenever he was alone, the same faint laughter echoed in his ears. Stay awake, stay awake. The first night had passed, but now Matthan knew this was no ordinary matter. After the first night, changes began to come rapidly into Matthan's life. In just 10 days, the labor contract he worked on doubled in value. A large company from the city signed a deal for his useless piece of land and paid him 2 million rupees in cash. For the first time, Matthan bought his mother a new sari and a fine suit for his sister. The villagers were astonished at where all this sudden money had come from. He himself was surprised, but happy too. Yet whenever he was alone at night, the same soft voice echoed in his ears. Stay awake. The second night is near. The second moonless night arrived only 12 days later. This time, Matthan was prepared. The fakir had told him that on the second night, blood must be given. His own blood. 3 drops. They had to be poured inside the well. At 10 o'clock that night, Matthan took a sharp knife, a small glass vial, and a box of red vermilion powder. His mother was asleep. Quietly, he slipped out of the house. This time, there was a strange fearlessness in his steps. The first night had shown him that the power was real. When he reached the well, he shone his torch into the darkness. The mouth of the well looked blacker than before. The same rotten smell lingered in the air, but now it was mixed with a strangely sweet fragrance. Matthan sat upon the stone platform and stretched out his left hand. With the knife, he made a deep cut across his palm. Warm blood immediately flowed out. He collected 3 drops of blood in the vial. Then, standing at the edge of the well, he called out, I, Matthan Chaudhry, have come for the second night. A long silence followed. Then the same woman's voice rose from inside the well. Give the blood and come down. Matthan's heart pounded. Come down? There had never been any stairs inside the well. But when he looked carefully, he saw an old rough staircase of stone built into the wall, something that had not been visible before. Slowly, he began descending. The air grew colder with every step. About 30 feet below, he found a small stone ledge. In the center stood an ancient stone slab. Matthan poured the 3 drops of blood onto it. The moment the drops touched the slab, the stone absorbed them as if it were thirsty. Suddenly, a faint red light spread all around him. The woman now stood before him. This time her face was clear, beautiful, but her eyes were completely black. No pupils, only deep, endless darkness. She smiled. You have done well. Now tell me, what do you desire? Trembling, Matthan said, money, lots of money, a big car, a large house in the city, and power. I want people to fear me. The woman laughed softly. You shall have it all, but each time the price will grow. She took hold of Matthan's wounded hand. Where the blood was flowing, she placed her palm. A strange heat rushed through him. The wound healed instantly, and at the same time, a surge of strength ran through his body. The woman said, For 3 days, every wish of yours will be fulfilled, but return on the 3rd night. If you do not come back, you will repay this blood. Matthan nodded and climbed back to the surface. The next 3 days felt like a dream. On the first morning, a lawyer from the city arrived. He informed Matthan that an old property case belonging to his grandfather had been won, and he was to receive 5 million rupees. Matthan immediately bought an expensive new motorcycle. On the second day, villagers saw a large SUV parked outside his house. On the 3rd day, he bought a plot in the city and signed a deal with a major contractor. People had started calling him Matthan Bhai. But at night, he began having strange dreams. In the dreams, he was inside the well, while thousands of black hands pulled him downward. On the 3rd night, Matthan developed a fever. His body burned like fire. His mother gave him medicine, but the fever did not go down. At midnight, he dreamed that the woman was standing beside his bed, whispering, "Pay the debt of blood, or I will take your blood back." Matthan awoke in terror. The wound on his hand, the same place he had cut before, had reopened. Blood was flowing again. He understood then. This was only the beginning. Now the third moonless night was near. And this time, a name had to be written. His own name, and perhaps someone else's too. After the second night, Matthan's life hung between a dream and a nightmare. Money kept coming, but with every new fortune came a new fear. At night, he felt as if something beneath his bed was breathing. Whenever he looked into the mirror, he sometimes saw a dark shadow lurking behind his eyes. The third moonless night was very close now. This time, the fakir had told him that the third night was the night of names. He would have to write his own name, and another name, the price of his greatest desire. Matthan thought he would write his own name and perhaps the name of some rich man in the village. But deep inside, a voice told him it would not be that simple. At 10 o'clock that night, he once again walked toward the well. This time he carried an old sheet of paper, a black pen, and a small bronze plate. The wind was fierce that night. Tree branches struck against one another, as if a battle was taking place in the darkness. When he reached the well, he noticed that its mouth seemed wider than before. He turned on the torch. In the light, he saw red markings on the inner walls of the well, ancient names written there centuries ago. He climbed down. This time the stone steps were more slippery. When he reached the same ledge below, the woman was already waiting. Her clothing was now red. Her face was clearer than before. Her eyes were still nothing but black darkness, yet her lips carried a smile that filled Matthan with dread. "The third night," she said softly. "The night of names." With trembling hands, Matthan took out the paper. "What should I write?" "Write your full name and one more name. The name that shall become the price of your greatest wish." Matthan thought carefully. His greatest desire was power, to rule over people. He wrote his own name, Matthan Singh Chaudhry. Then, after a pause, he wrote another name, Ramlal Pandey, the richest and most feared troublemaker in the village. The moment he finished writing, the ink on the paper turned red like flowing blood. The woman laughed softly. "A wise choice. Now throw the paper into the well." Matthan tossed the paper into the darkness. The instant it fell, a thunderous cry rose from below, as if thousands of people had screamed together. Then everything fell silent. The woman took Matthan's hand and said, "Now your wish shall be fulfilled. But remember, every name has its price." That night, Matthan returned home completely exhausted. The next morning, news spread through the village. Ramlal Pandey had suddenly fallen gravely ill. Doctors said his blood had turned poisonous. 3 days later, Ramlal died. And to everyone's astonishment, much of his property and business passed into Matthan's name. Because years ago, Ramlal had written an old will mentioning that Matthan should receive a share. A will Matthan had never even seen. Now Matthan had become the richest and most powerful man in the village. He began building a grand mansion. New cars arrived. Servants obeyed him. People lowered their heads when he passed. But the happiness did not last long. At night, the woman began appearing in his dreams. She whispered, "You have written the names. Now, on the fourth night, you will speak your true desire." Then one night, Matthan saw a horrifying dream. Ramlal Pandey's dead body was climbing out of the well and walking toward him. His face was swollen. His eyes were empty. Again and again, he cried out, "Give me back my name, give me back my life." Matthan woke screaming. His whole body was drenched in sweat. Now, the fourth moonless night was only 8 days away. Matthan finally understood. This ritual was slowly consuming him. It had given him wealth, but in return, it was taking his sleep, his peace, and perhaps even his life. He began wondering whether he should continue the ritual or stop now. But greed still sat deep inside his heart. Will Matthan be able to complete this ritual, or will he fall victim to another danger? To uncover this mystery, watch the next part of this story. And be sure to share your opinion in the comments, and tell us how you liked this story.